All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to this episode of Rum'd Reviews. Today we'll be reviewing Chinatown with, what is it, Jack Nicholson? Jack Nicholson?
What
I have
is
no
Jack Nicholson?
idea who directed it.
Good start.
What?
Good start.
Oh, God.
I believe that is, what is Jack Nicholson for 500, please?
Get off the show. You're terrible.
Hey, this is why I wanted to do this one.
All
Because
right. Hold on. Before we start down this rabbit hole. Hi, everybody. I'm John. Good to be back with you.
And I'm Jack. Yeah, okay. I thought you were going to introduce me, but are we going to talk about what we're drinking?
What a bad host. Jeez.
Oh, Jesus
Christ.
All right.
Amazing.
All right.
Amazing.
No, this is chaotic. So we also have the return of our seemingly favorite guest.
Yes, I am
Jack,
the favorite.
J.R. Davidson.
Thank you.
Back for, this is his third episode with us.
In a row.
And then also our beloved original co-host, Dustin Miller. He was actually back this past week, and now I'm back on, and so we finally got the band back together. For anybody that doesn't know at this point, Jack, Dustin, and myself are all three some really good friends back in college, and quite the three amigos. And then so Jack, you already hit on what I'm going to ask next, which is, what are we drinking tonight, boys? Jack, why don't you go ahead and go first?
For anyone that's listening to the podcast. Yeah, everyone knew I was going to say gin, but I got some Tanqueray this week with some tonic.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Dustin, anything from you, my friend?
I'm drinking water because I actually was already drinking earlier today.
All right.
Yeah, well, earlier today I was drinking a little white rum.
Ooh.
Some Bacardi Silver. And I mixed that with some weird yerba mate thing, which was basically just mint tea, I think.
Oh, okay.
Not even sure what it was. But it was good. It was pretty good. Kind of had like a mojito vibe.
Are you saying you had to drink to get through this movie?
We'll get to that.
No, I actually drank after the movie.
Ooh, okay.
But
all right. Well, I am having something a little bit uncharacteristic for me.
43 flavors.
20. Yeah, no, we're gonna do a quick correction here. Last week, these idiots did not know that Dr. Pepper has 23 unique flavors.
I will claim idiot. I said 43, and I also followed it up by saying, but I'm not a doctor, so I do not know.
Well, I'm an idiot because I trusted you. I knew that sounded off, but I don't drink pop, so.
What? Just no. So wrong. That's their whole marketing campaign, though. Come on, guys. No, I am having a little
Dr.
Kirk
Pepper,
and
please
Sweeney.
sponsor us.
Oh my gosh. I'm having a little Kirk and Sweeney 18-year barrel-aged rum on the rocks. So
give it up for John, everybody. Drinking solid rum
on the rocks.
Good job.
With no mixer.
I'm not gonna lie, it's mostly because the only mixers I have in my house are milk and coffee, and neither of those sounded good. So
thank you for not butchering it any further, John.
I went, you know what? Let's just do something a little different for me and just drink it on the rocks. So all right, Chinatown with what is Jack Nicholson, only
for 500, please.
Only one of the most defining actors of our lifetime.
Yeah.
Debatable.
Faye Dunaway is fantastic. She's in this film. And then you don't know who the director is. You just don't know.
I believe that question is directed towards me.
Yeah, that's for you, Dustin.
No, I have not. I'm looking at the notes here. Roman Polanski. Haven't heard of him. Maybe I have seen some of his other movies.
Oh my God. All right, so we're gonna open talking about.
I was gonna say I did not think we would get into it this early, but I think we have to.
We're not even going to talk about the whole movie yet. We're just jumping into the that is me.
I decided before we even started that we were going to just jump on the whole Polanski thing right from the get-go and make it happen.
John knew what was up.
Oh, God. Roman Polanski is a incredibly controversial figure because he is regarded as one of the greatest directors around, but he's also kind of probably a rapist and child molester.
I would not say probably.
Did he write the script for this movie?
He directed
the director.
I just had to ask if he wrote the script too, because the movie was a little fucked up. But
yeah, no, there's some things we'll talk about later that maybe are reflections of Mr. Polanski. But yeah,
or foreshadowing.
So he's actually in the movie too.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Quick little cameo.
Quick little cameo. 2 scenes I think he has. But no, so he was this really really great director. He has this pretty tragic backstory. He's Jewish, and his family kind of survived everything that happened around World War II. And he ends up though losing his parents actually in World War II. They're taken. He has some forged documents, I believe, and manages to kind of skip through some channels to escape. Kind of starts his rise to fame. Eventually, makes it to America to make some major films here as well, and is widely regarded as just this fantastic director. And then it comes out that he's having a sexual relationship with a 13-year-old girl. And then a bunch of other actresses come forward and talk about some pretty horrendous things that he did to them. And so he fled the country and has been in exile ever since. This was actually the last movie he directed in America. Keeping in mind that he still is making movies today. But this is the last one that he directed in America before he had to get up and go. One of the other things about Roman Polanski, though, and I think there was an opportunity to talk more about this some other time with some other movies, but he is central to the Tate LaBianca murders of the Manson family. Excuse me. So, Dustin, you've heard of Charlie Manson and the Manson family, correct?
Yes, I have heard of them.
Okay, and you know the horrendous Manson family murders.
Yeah.
Okay. Sharon Tate was Roman Polanski's wife. That was, and she was 8 months pregnant, I think, with their child. And Charles Manson was obsessed with Sharon Tate. And so that's why he sent the kill orders out, because he was so just kind of bewildered that she would A, not notice him, but B, she was married to a Jew. And that was a problem for old Manson. And so then, yes, the horrendous Sharon Tate LaBianca murders occur. This was the first film that Polanski made after that horrendous event, this movie called on him to return to Los Angeles, the site of his family's brutal murder. He was out of the country working on another film project when that happened.
Damn.
And he very much blames himself for not being home. So, like I said at the top, really controversial figure, because he simultaneously has a pretty tragic story, but then is also very much just a predatorial piece of crap.
So he had, I'm guessing he had the affair with the 13-year-old girl after his wife and family was murdered.
That's a good question. I don't actually know.
Well, damn.
Yeah, so that's the director of this film.
That's a story in itself. The trials and tribulations of Roman Polanski.
One Roman Polanski
coming to you soon.
And I wasn't gonna ask this question right away, but since we're talking about it, I want to start the discussion on can you separate the art from the artist?
Ooh.
Yeah.
And what are your thoughts on that? Because I've never seen Rosemary's Baby, which is regarded as one
I
of the
have.
best films ever. And part of the reason I wanted us to watch Chinatown is because I haven't seen a lot of the quote unquote classics. Another big reason is because.
Have you seen this real quick, Jack? Have you seen this movie beforehand?
Well, so my little background. My dad gave me this book. It is The Big Goodbye, Chinatown, and the Last Years of Hollywood, written by Sam Wasson. And it's kind of just an oral history document on the making of Chinatown. And so he gave me that last February. He gave me this book last February. Kind of left it on my shelf and then read it this summer. And then went back and watched it with my parents for the first time a couple weeks ago. But the first chapter in that book, the first section, is called Justice, and it is all about Roman Polanski. Opens with his life, basically what John just laid out for us, his tragic life. But yeah, getting back into the conversation I wanted to have about, yeah. Can we separate that? Does this taint the movie? What do you guys think?
Well, I'm going to come out and say right now, I didn't like the film.
So does it make it worse though? Like, are you now just
No, honestly, that doesn't make it any better or worse for me.
Okay.
Interesting.
Fair.
And that's actually kind of part of the reason why I had asked if you had seen the movie or not before we went into it, Jack, because I was like, man, this was Jack's idea to watch this movie, and I didn't like it. This is like the second or third film that I've watched that Jack has recommended that I didn't like.
Hey, we got Uncut Gems right, okay?
Yeah,
I was surprised.
I'm not saying I'm not keeping score, but
but he is.
My point is, I'm always trying to get you to watch movies I don't think you'll like. That's why I was surprised with Uncut Gems.
Well, you're doing a good job.
No, I definitely knew this wouldn't be your favorite. I have an idea what John will think. You can either tell me now or wait till the rating. I don't care. I just mainly wanted to watch this with you guys because, like I said, I want to brush up on my older movies.
Classic cinema. This really is the one of the last breaths of the golden era of Hollywood too. And this film oozes that. It absolutely oozes that just butter richness of that golden era of Hollywood. But I'm gonna step back here and answer your question. Can you separate the art from the artist? I have long been an advocate of that. The idea of you can separate somebody's professional accolades while completely disagreeing with their personal decision making. Now it becomes complicated because are you then enabling that individual because you're contributing funds towards their resources? And so that becomes the complicated part of that. I think that ends up becoming less of an issue in post-mortem. Once an artist has moved on, then you are no longer contributing and enabling to them, so you can go back and review that. But in reality, I think the answer is still yes. It's just a really slimy thing to have that feeling that, yeah, at the end of the day, you probably are contributing to some really negative things. But you can still look at a piece of artwork for simply artwork and say, objectively or subjectively, this is good, this is bad, here's why.
And
now,
real quick, I want to piggyback off of that, John. Hold your thought. You can't also just say, "Oh, he was a shitty guy, so I'm not going to watch any of his films," because you're not just punishing him by doing that. You're also punishing everyone who acted in the film and everyone who worked in the production crew of the film, and that's not really fair.
Well, I think just to play devil's advocate here.
All right.
I think the simple answer to that is, well, no, but fuck those people. They made a decision to work with a terrible person. Like, I
Except for,
get what you're
this all
saying.
came out 10 years later, so no one knew what was going
No,
on.
this all came out short. Like, there's a difference between early on and then like when it was an unknown thing. Like, for example, Polanski is still making movies today.
Yeah.
So like there
That
are
would be-
people that all of these things are known and they're still like, yeah, why
Yeah.
not?
Yeah. See, like
Um,
nowadays, if you're saying you're going to work with him, it's kind of like, okay, yeah, you know what you're getting into. And you're
Yeah.
also just kind of a shitty person, because then, yes, I
Yeah.
would say you are
you
kind of enabling
absolutely
that person.
can't hold that standard for something for an era that knowledge was not known. You can't be
Right.
you can't retroactively decide that they were bad people for not acting upon something that they didn't know.
Yep.
Now, my other point I was going to make, and then I think this can help us really kind of dive into this film, and it sounds like we're going to have a fun conversation. I think that while you can separate the art from the artist, I'm not sure that the artist, in particular Polanski, because I think you see this repeatedly, is able to separate himself from his art. Because oh boy, just so many of his movies make a lot more sense when you know his life story. There are some key things that recur repeatedly in his films that are like, oh yeah, okay.
Yep.
So
I wouldn't know.
that was my little interlude. So
Because, like I said, I don't think I've ever seen any of his other movies. Maybe I have. I'd have to look at the full list. But
Looks like you're not gonna see any more. So
probably not. He sounds
I
like a
still
real
want-
slime ball, so I don't want to enable him.
I still want to see Rosemary's Baby, but yeah, I mean,
great. Film.
I think the biggest reason I watched this movie and I like it, other than what John said about it kind of being the end of an era, the golden age of Hollywood. My dad gave me the book, and I really enjoyed reading it. It's about the history of the city I live in now, and I think it's like that book is a great complementary piece to the movie. Not saying that you have to read it or you'll like it more if you do read it, but if at least personally for me, I got uh, a lot of good background from reading the book and then watching the movie. So I think that helped my viewing experience. But yeah, I mean, if this is a podcast just about reviewing movies that you just watched, if we want to just dive in, talk about why you didn't like it, Dustin.
Dustin, you have the floor. Come on.
There was a number of reasons why I didn't like this particular film, and some of the things are actually kind of shocking, especially when I actually started looking at the history, especially like with Jack Nicholson being in it, and I believe he was nominated for an Oscar for this film, and he actually won the Gold Globe, I believe, for this film. I have no idea what the Gold Globe is, but we're not going to get into that right now. I understand it as an award, and it's a big deal.
That's all you need to know.
Yep.
There you go. You nailed it.
It is literally a Golden Globe. That's the truth.
I figured that much.
This is early Jack Nicholson too. Like this is like the first evolution of Jack Nicholson, because there's a key distinction between like when he was doing these kinds of characters and then the kinds of characters he would most recently do.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And I might not know his history very well, or like other movies that he did before this, because this movie came out in 1974, so that was definitely before my time. Our time.
Before all of our time.
But overall, I thought he did a really good job with the role that he was given. There was some points though where I was like, "You're really laying it on thick." There's no way that anyone, like, if you were actually in that scenario, I wasn't buying it. One of them being when towards the end, like he was talking to the detectives, trying to convince them that he needed to go in the house, or like saying that, "Oh, they're not here; they're somewhere else." I don't know. I didn't find that believable, but maybe that was just me. I thought the way he acted it just didn't seem genuine to like how I thought his character would have actually done it anyway within the role. But
Okay.
yeah, so there was a little bit of Jack Nicholson's acting that I wasn't buying. A little bit, not a lot. The other thing that I couldn't get over was I felt like the movie was really choppy. And that might also be, because of the way older movies were put together, but there really wasn't very many transition scenes. There wasn't a whole lot of hints or clues on why all of a sudden we're at this particular place. It was just kind of like, we're going from this to this to this to this to this. And then you kind of find out why he was there after the fact, but there was nothing really leading into it. And I could go into some examples and like why that kind of was frustrating me a little bit. But I think the biggest thing is I didn't like the ending.
Ooh.
I felt like it
we
was.
have to wait to talk
I
about
felt like
that.
it was rushed, but yeah, we'll have to wait to talk about that more.
We'll jump to
I
the
understand.
ending here in a little bit. We're not going to wait forever, but
I
I do want to tackle some other things first.
I will say, I don't care. Everything you just said is fine. I would push back on
Please do.
I would push back on it. You felt like it didn't make sense where the next scene was going to go, because I feel like, I mean, I did watch it twice. So maybe a second viewing, with the mystery, you're putting the pieces together. But because I will say the first time it did, it did make sense at the end, but it was easier the second time. I'll just say that. But yeah, I'm just saying that, it's a day in life of a investigator. He's just trying to solve this mystery, and every place he went to made sense. Like, why? I mean, he was getting clues and then using those clues to go somewhere else. So I would push back a little bit with that. The editing, maybe it's the older
Well, yeah,
film.
I think, like I said earlier, this film oozes that golden age of Hollywood. And Dustin, I'm going to assume you probably haven't watched a lot. A lot of people haven't. We probably haven't watched a lot of movies from that golden age. So, like, that is just kind of the style. It was a much more direct, I guess I would say, like, style of storytelling. But also with this film in particular, Polanski had talked about it, that he wanted it to be, he wanted the viewer to feel like they were seeing it from the perspective of Nicholson's character, Gittes, I think.
Gittes.
Yep.
Yeah. So you're supposed to be seeing it from his perspective. So like, you're figuring these things out. You're just kind of going with him all the time. There was actually originally meant to be voiceover work, narration, that Nicholson's character was going to do to transition you to the next scene. But they made the decision to cut that because they wanted it to feel much more of that POV of the character, and that you were discovering things as the character discovered them.
That's interesting you say that, because I don't know. That might have been something that I would have been more interested in, like having like that more like an outsider narration, just something to kind of tie you into the next scene. Because since this was an older movie, like, there was music, and the soundtrack that they had was really well put together and well orchestrated, but there wasn't
some of the
really
songs were made specifically for this movie, if I remember correctly.
The score is amazing.
Yeah.
I really like the music.
Like that trumpet solo, killed it. Just killed it.
Which makes the ending that much sadder.
Yeah. But like, there wasn't any music like tying you into the next scene, because the older movies.
Well, this
and,
is noir style too. Like, this is noir. Like, it's supposed to have, like, noir has basically the same music for every
right. But what I'm saying is, like, I didn't feel like the music was carrying from like one scene to the next. I felt like it was like, we're here, cut. Now we're here, cut. Yeah. Now we're here, cut. And there, like, I'm like trying to compare it in my mind to like some of the other stuff that like we've talked about on the show. And I feel like when we review Knives Out, for instance, there's a lot of like little things that they pull in when you're watching the movie. There's a lot of little things and like context clues that you can pick up I felt more so
Yeah.
in that film opposed to this one. And I understand some of that was probably because of like the limitations of how, production was made. But I just didn't feel like there was enough. Like I didn't feel like there was enough holding it together scene by scene for me. And then like I look back at it and I'm like, well, why did some of those scenes even happen? Like why the hell was he even there? Because I either didn't hear something that was supposed to happen or I didn't see something. I don't know. I was kind of lost.
Interesting.
Yes.
I mean, I can get what you're saying there. I don't know. I felt like it was followable enough. I will agree that there was some serious abruptness from scene to scene at times. But I felt like it built up, and I think part of it was, again, you were saying like, why were some of these scenes there? I think it's supposed to be with that perspective of Nicholson's character. As you're an investigator, like sometimes you are going to meander, right? Like you're going to find stuff that you're like, oh, this might mean something. And no. So yeah, and I think that was supposed to be part of that journey. Jack, I mean?
Yeah,
what are your
I would
thoughts,
say
Jack?
every scene, I think he figures out something else, something more that moves the plot forward, even if
Right.
it's not as like big and spectacular as Knives Out would be. But
Well,
I'm just
go ahead, finish your thought. Sorry, I'm interrupting.
I'm just saying, like, you find out from what is her name? Ida
We're terrible at
Sessions.
names.
Yeah, I know. Great. I wrote all these down. Ida Sessions calls him and confesses that she was faking it, being at the very beginning, not the actual sorry.
She was pretending to be, what is it, Holloway's
Yes.
wife?
Dunway.
So yeah,
Or
Dunway's wife. Dunway. Sorry, I said Holloway because so this is like loosely based off of a real life thing that happened in California.
Right.
Oh, really?
And I'm pretty sure the real life Dunaway's
Mulray.
name was like.
We're butchering these names. It's Mulray.
Mulray.
So yeah, at the
there
very
was a
beginning,
Holloway in the actual story. So,
right.
Anyway, continue.
And that name, they use that name. Robert Town used that name to come up with the characters Hollis,
yes,
and then Mulray. So yes, that's why we're confused. But anyway, the actual movie, the character of Mrs. Mulray, at the beginning we think it's one person, and then the real Mrs. Mulray comes in, Evelyn, comes in and says, no, I am actually Mr. Mulray, and you're going to have a lawsuit on your hands. We get that. So then later on, Ida Sessions, the fake one, the imposter, calls, and gives him, Mr. Geddes is asking, like, well, tell me who your employer is, who put you up to this. And she can't say that, but she does say something along the lines of, like, look in the obituary section, you'll find those people.
Look in the obituary column, you'll find one of those people there.
And he's like, one of those people hangs up. So then, like, that is a piece of information that he has that was sprinkled in that you don't really think of. And then later on in the film, when he's putting all these pieces together, because he goes to the Hall of Records to find out information on, what is it, the
land purchases,
right, the valley,
but why was he there though in the Hall Records? Do you remember?
To go research the land purchases of the valley.
Right.
I know, but why did he want to research the land purchases of the valley?
Because he went to the valley and there were signs showing things bought recently. What are you talking about, Dustin?
Well, that's like, I don't remember why he was in the Hall of Records for. Like, I don't know why he went there.
Like,
your inability to pay attention to details is not this movie's fault.
I was going to say, I don't want to explain everything beat by beat, but Hollis Mulray he's looking to talk to Hollis. When he goes to the office, he's not there, so he has to talk to Russ Yelburton, the deputy chief of water and power.
Right.
And that's when he figures out that they've been moving the water, irrigating the water to the valley. And they say, oh, we're doing this to help out some farmers. So then he has the Orange Grove information. So it's just like that's what I mean. Every scene he gets a little bit, and
Constantly
it's
building.
it's very subtle, which is maybe why Dustin doesn't remember. But as an investigator, we don't have the narrator to say, and then he goes here because of
And
what
then
he
he
just
decided
learned
to
there.
stop by the orange groves. Like, yeah, no.
Yeah, well, and I think, yeah, I missed some stuff. There was a lot of things that I missed, and I don't know if that's just because it wasn't blatantly obvious and I needed it to be blatantly obvious. I probably did, but that's not only the thing that I'm talking about. I'm also talking about like from a production standpoint. Like there wasn't enough for me.
You didn't
Like,
like the transitions. You didn't feel
yeah,
like
it
it
was just
transitioned
like
well.
there
It
was
was just like,
one.
hey, we're in this spot. All right, we've
Yep.
finished everything we're supposed to do in this spot. So now we're
Nothing
in a
in
new
between.
spot.
There was no like couple scenes to like show you that they're going from one scene to the next, like him driving or like.
Well, again, that's reminiscent of that golden age of Hollywood because that is reminiscent of stage theater, right?
Which is a
Like
fair
in
point.
stage
And I
theater,
don't
you
like
don't
stage
have those
theater.
transitional. Yeah, no, we know. We know you don't like stage
Sorry,
theater.
Jack. I know you love it.
But like that's what this era of Hollywood was like. Was it was emulating some of those things. So again, like for you, it's just you don't like the era of Hollywood.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
This
To each
is
their
why
own.
it's a good thing. Man, could you imagine if you were born in that era of Hollywood? You'd never watch a movie.
I wouldn't have watched movies.
I think you would have, and you would have thought it was good. But now, with the comparison of what we have now,
That's true. That's probably true.
And I think that's also, it's really hard to judge a movie that's, geez, what did I did the math. It's like 40 some years old. 76. Yeah, that's crazy.
74, I thought. Was it
Yeah,
74?
74. You're right.
74.
So 6,
Yeah, because
bring you up to 80, 20,
Polanski left in
26,
78.
46 years.
Can we talk about the fact, though, like a brief, like kind of going back here real quick? Jack Nicholson, you said you weren't familiar with his filmography outside of the film, right?
I haven't seen The Shining, but I know he's in The Shining. And then
That
after
came
that,
way later. Can we talk about the fact that we're talking about Jack Nicholson, who
I
still
think The Shining came out in
sometimes
77.
acts today?
Yes.
Still sometimes had his first role in 1955, 56. Now he was like a bit part in a TV show, but has his first role in 1956.
Is he 80 something?
He's like 83 years old. Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah. And then from 74 to God, even the 2000s, like the breadth of movies that man did. I mean, The Shining, Batman, The Two Jakes, which is a sequel to this film. Just so much. Sorry.
who's in the
I just
bucket
had to get
list?
that in there about Nicholson because, like, I don't feel like he gets enough credit.
I love Nicholson, and I love The Shining. I
The
would
Shining
tell
came out in
The
1980.
bucket list with Morgan Freeman? I haven't
Yeah.
seen that movie in
Yeah, he
forever.
did that in like the 2000s.
I would tell Dustin to watch The Shining, but he won't like it. So
Oh, The Shining is solid.
I know that's classic. I've seen bits and pieces.
It's solid.
one of those movies you can't see bits.
It's got a whole conspiracy theory built around it.
Yep.
I believe it.
Has to do with the moon landing.
Mm.
We'll talk about that some other time, though. Back to the movie at hand, Chinatown. So, we've talked a little bit about Nixon. We've talked about Polanski. We've talked about the fact that Dustin hates the transitions, doesn't like the golden era of Hollywood.
Mhm.
Jack, I'm sure you've got a few points you want to touch on. What do you got for us? Throw us into something.
Yeah, I mean, reading that book taught me a lot, and so I'm just gonna like paraphrase everything that I learned in that. But when Robert Towne was writing this, he was so fixated on the title being Chinatown, and early on in the process, all the producers and the director, Roman Polanski, everyone was so like, why can't you just write
Yeah.
Why can't you just like write a mystery? Why does it have to be about Chinatown? And anyway, I don't know if you got this, John or Dustin, but Chinatown is it's a location in the movie at the end that we can talk about later. But Town went on to say something along the lines of Chinatown isn't a place, it's a mindset. Meaning the theme of this movie is, the final line, forget about it, Jake, it's Chinatown. Like, there's nothing you can do about it. To quote, as little as possible, do as little as possible. That's why he has to walk away. I know this is getting into the conversation of the last scene, but I mean, that's just like he used to work with, what's his name, Lou Escobar, his buddy that's now the lieutenant, and now they're kind of enemies, but they used to work together in Chinatown, and there was something that happened that he could have maybe prevented from happening, but because of in the 30s, when you're white and you're working in an area like Chinatown, because of the different languages and because of just everything, you don't really know if you're helping or helping or maybe helping do a crime. You don't know if you're. So that was the whole point, is that,
it's Chinatown.
Right.
Yeah.
Just forget about it. That's why you can walk away in the end, because there's nothing he could do.
Yes. It's Chinatown. Fun fact about this. Sorry. I don't know if you guys knew this, but so Town, the writer,
right,
originally was brought on to write a script for The Great Gatsby. And he was offered at that time $125,000 to do so. He said no because he didn't think he could outdo the written work as it existed, and agreed to just make a film called Chinatown for $25,000. So this movie was originally supposed to be The Great Gatsby. Just had to throw that in there.
Which I didn't like as a story anyway.
Oh God. Okay, so
I'm just gonna trash all of
you just don't like anything classical.
I like the Dukes of Hazzard. That's a classic.
So anyway, we're gonna move on. We've kind of danced around it. I don't think we've actually even said what the whole premise of the film is. Like, we've said it's a film noir. We've said it's this kind of mystery. But the whole premise is Jack Nicholson's character is a private investigator. He gets hired to catch an adulterer, and then that ends up spiraling into this mass conspiracy that he falls down this rabbit hole of, ultimately culminating in trying to help some people get out of a bad situation. And we've kind of hinted at it a few times, and I know Jack is eager to just go ahead and get it out there. So I think we can just talk about how this film ends, because we know, Dustin, that you didn't like it. We know, Jack, I think I know where you're going to go with it, and then I don't know. I'll share my thoughts, I guess. So Jack, what do you want to say about the ending before Dustin tells you how horrible it is?
Yeah, I like it. I think it's a great last scene. There's not, I mean, I already talked about Chinatown and the meaning of that, and kind of the inspiration of Town, the writer, to, you're always supposed to know your ending. And reading the book, he knew his ending. He knew where he wanted to go. It took him a long time to write this. As we all know, writers procrastinate. And so I think it took him a few years to really crank out even a first draft that Polanski regarded as being filmable or whatever. But
which Polanski and Town like basically hated each other.
Oh yeah, yep.
They did not get along.
And then I mean, I love the last scene. Everything is just a culmination of culmination. Thank you, John. Yeah, it's good. I don't know what else to say about it. I mean, I like the cinematography, and it just goes back to the main theme of the story, I think, for me. I think that also, if we want, I know we're talking about the ending, but I wanted to know your thoughts on the scene where we find out the truth about
Catherine.
Right. because I wanted to ask Dustin and you if you not if you saw it coming, but if it made sense when you saw it, or like what were your thoughts on this? This she's my sister, she's my daughter, she's my sister, she's my daughter.
There's a lot of slapping, which I didn't know this movie actually took place in the 30s, or was supposed to take place in the 30s. I found that out after the fact. So in my mind, I'm thinking the movie took place somewhere around the 70s. Well, because it's already a 46-year-old movie, so I'm thinking that took place around then. So after I found that out, it really kind of made a little bit more sense on the fact that there was a lot of, and I don't know, you probably caught onto this too. There was mistreatment of women for sure in the movie. I mean, you had her getting slapped in the particular scene that you're talking about when he's like, "Tell me the truth," and she's like, "She's my daughter," and he slaps her because earlier on she was saying that she was her sister, which both were true, but in that moment,
we didn't know that.
We didn't know that, so he slaps her, and she's like, "She's my daughter." Slap, and it's like no holds bar. I'm like, damn.
Fun fact about that scene: the slaps were real.
I believed it
because, well, here's why: Nicholson didn't want to do it, but they couldn't get the fake slaps right, and Faye Dunaway got tired of reshooting, so she told him to slap the shit out of her, and so he did. And then he felt really bad about it and was very like open about that for a long time.
Like I'll be like, all of that looked and felt really real for sure, because it was. And I was kind of curious if he actually was slapping her. I was like,
oh, yeah.
Did that really just happen? I mean, like she looks like she's red in the face, like she's tearing up, like she actually just actually got slapped. So that makes sense. So like we're talking like, I don't know, 5 or 10 slaps of them going back and forth, like the truth, daughter, sister, slap, slap, slap. And then finally, like he throws her, and like that was like tossed her across the room, hit her head on something. I'm like thinking, what the fuck are you doing, man?
I mean, this is the era though of life when like one of the #1 TV shows, the running gag for the honeymooners was one of these days, right to the moon, right? Like the whole running gag is, I'm gonna knock you so hard with a sucker punch I send you to the moon. So yeah, like,
yeah,
and even Curly, the guy at the very opening,
dude,
yeah, who
I was gonna
Geddes takes pictures of his wife cheating on him, and then you don't see him till the end when Jake needs a favor, and when it pans over to his wife, you see he has a black eye, so it's like,
yeah.
Do you know the deleted scene portion of the beginning with him, with Curly?
Nope.
You guys don't know that? Okay. So I didn't know this either until I researched this. So originally that scene was supposed to be longer. And it was going to essentially have Curly say that one of the, like one day he's just going to have to go kill his cheating wife. And Geddes says, "Oh, you're not rich enough for that, Curly," to completely foreshadow the ending. They ultimately made the decision to cut it, and I think it was Town said later, was like, or maybe it was one of the producers, but somebody involved came out later and they're like, yeah, cutting that scene was one of the biggest regrets I have about that movie, because it just foreshadowed it so well.
That would have I think helped the ending a little bit more.
Yeah.
A little bit, not like a lot, but yeah,
so,
getting back on track.
I was gonna say, let's talk about real quick, because we haven't actually said anything of substance about what the big reveal is and what the ending ultimately culminates into. So the big reveal is Evelyn, who is the wife of the first murder victim,
Alice,
you find out is at one point had a sexual relationship with her own father, which then produced a child, Catherine, which is now, because of that incestuous relationship, both daughter, sister. her father, what is his name? Cross, right?
Noah Cross.
Noah Cross. Um, he is the one that's kind of behind this whole stealing of the water and irrigating it into the valley thing. Um, Tying it back to what we were talking about with the obituaries, he's using essentially the senior citizen home, using their identities to purchase the land so that people don't catch on to the fact that it's all owned by him. And then he's trying to get his daughter slash granddaughter, um, because quote, she's the last daughter, she's the only daughter he has left. Um, and so then the film ultimately culminates in Noah getting away with it all. Basically because he gets away with the one murder. They end up in Chinatown when Evelyn and Catherine are trying to get away. Evelyn ends up shooting Noah and takes off, and the cops end up shooting her eye out, which is a subtle reference to Oedipus, the story of Oedipus, when he gouged his eyes out after realizing he slept with his mother. So
Okay.
So and then yeah, nothing happens, and the famous line, "Forget it, Jake. It's Chinatown."
And that all happens within like 4 minutes.
Yeah, no, that all happens very quickly. Where they're like, where the reveal occurs very quickly, where they're like, "Hey, this guy's a scumbag piece of shit. Hey, this is who this person is. All right, and we're done."
Yep.
But again, though, is that really that unrealistic? Like, if once you get that big domino, the rest obviously fall. Like, and it all like, what else do you want?
Yeah, Dustin, going back to when we talked about Uncut Gems, what we liked about it was that it felt so natural. And the conversations, people talking over each other, like their decisions, their motives. And so my question to you is like, did this movie, the last scene, I guess, just feel too fast for you? Because I agree with John. I think it's pretty natural and real to life, where things
I
just
mean,
happen and then you're processing it.
okay, let's break it down a little bit. So this time period's in the 30s.
Yep.
I have no idea how cops react to a woman with a gun who just shot an old white man in the arm.
But
No
you got to
idea.
remember, these weren't just any cops, though. These cops also kind of like were close to the situation.
And it's in Chinatown, the whole point.
So what? So they can get away with anything in Chinatown?
Yes, that's
Basically.
the point,
right?
Forget it, Jake. It's Chinatown.
Right. So fine. Let's just accept all of that. Let's just accept that all of that's okay. That all would have played out. My next biggest problem I have with it is I personally didn't feel very emotionally connected to her at all, because we didn't really see her very much throughout the film, because it was all focused on
Jake,
right? Which is fine, but the big contrasting difference between this film and Uncut Gems was the person who died in the end was the main character that you were like in a way kind of, yeah, you were so invested in, and the film had a way of like getting you to kind of root for the guy even though he was a scumbag, right?
But I think what you're not giving credit to this film for is exactly why you feel the way you do, though. You feel cheated. You feel like you got shorted on an ending that was just like, well, what the fuck was the point of this last 2 hours? And that's exactly how Jake feels. Like, this is the culmination of all of it, and then he gets cheated, all because, well, the guy was rich enough and it's Chinatown.
And it already happened to him once. This is happening to him again.
The second time.
And then the sequel, which I have not seen, the other Jake, but apparently the sequel, it happens again. And so it's just the same thing over and over again. And so you do feel for Jake, because
I really want them to make the third movie, even though I have no doubt it would be just horrendous.
I don't think the second one's that good, but
No.
but
which, yes, Dustin, this was originally planned to be a trilogy.
Damn.
If I remember correctly, Nicholson directs the sequel.
Yep,
stars in.
Yep.
So.
I didn't feel like I wasn't even really emotionally connected to Jake either, because I would also make the argument that we didn't have enough like if we knew really what happened, or like we went more into the backstory of like what actually happened in Chinatown, because up until the moment when he kind of had a little intimate connection with
Evelyn.
Evelyn, thank you.
Evelyn.
He kind of talked about it a little bit, but then they got interrupted. And then otherwise we have no history. We have no backstory on like him and the lieutenant, even though we kind of know it's a thing. You're kind of questioning, well, okay, what happened between you two? I guess you just went your separate ways. So I feel like instead of, I guess throughout the movie, I guess we would have just gotten more hints into the backstory that would have made me more emotionally committed to the character. Because otherwise it just seemed like, okay, yeah, we followed him exactly like how it would have played out in real life.
Can I? Well, yeah, no, that's the point of the movie.
Right.
Can I ask you this question? It's gonna sound off topic, but I swear I'm gonna connect it.
It's fine.
Are you a fan of the Coen brothers? Or would you say you're not particularly big on their movies either?
Coen brothers, remind me again.
That's
Hail
Caesar,
Buster Scruggs,
Yeah,
the Big
Scruggs,
Lebowski.
Hail Caesar, the Big
Okay,
Lebowski.
so I did not like
Guys.
Nice Guys.
I'm pretty sure.
I don't think they
no.
did Nice Guys.
I don't think they did
Didn't they?
either.
No.
Nice Guys, I enjoyed that film. I did not like Hail Caesar. We know for a fact that they did that film. I didn't like that one.
They did Fargo.
I haven't seen Fargo.
No, Shane Black did Nice Guys. My bad. What's the other one I'm thinking they did?
I know they did do Ballad of Buster Scruggs, and I actually did enjoy those little mini series. So it's not necessarily
True Grit.
No
Country for Old Men.
Yep, a bunch.
Oh brother, where art thou?
Haven't seen that one.
That's a great one.
Okay, well, so the reason I ask is because that's one of the things that like the Coen brothers style is very reminiscent in a much more modern, in most cases, Hail Caesar, I think being the biggest exception, but a much more modern version of the golden age of Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the big things with the Coen brothers, one of the big reasons a lot of people don't like them, is they tend to be like, people tend to say they feel very unsatisfied with the ending, because in a lot of instances with the Coens, the movie just ends, like the events unfold and that's that. And Jack and I have had this conversation before. That's one of the things I actually appreciate about the Coens and about that golden age of cinema, particularly with noir, is that was the point. It was like, no, this is just like, this is a day in the life of this.
Mm-hmm.
And so you didn't get the big Hollywood conclusion. You didn't get the big, even if it is a sad ending, you don't get the big, Iron Man at the end of the Infinity Saga send off. You get, hey, it happened, and I guess that's that. Now we just have to move on, and that's the whole point.
And we didn't really touch on this like a whole lot, besides me talking about like it being choppy. But for me, I was intrigued by the story. I was like, okay, this is interesting. And it kind of kept getting more interesting. But I think just like the way that they put the film together for me, and just the choppiness and like the lack of details, because obviously they were wanting you to kind of, I'm assuming the idea was you were also supposed to kind of just try to piece things together.
Yes.
As he was figuring it out. It just led me to like, if all of that was done better, I think maybe I could have actually accepted the ending. But for me, I just feel like I was wasting my time.
There you go.
So, and then it was like, okay, well, that's the ending. And then it was rushed. It was like in 4 minutes. Like I said, like I actually think it is in 4 minutes.
So because you keep bringing up 4 minutes, here's a really funny fact to me. When Gittes, basically the culmination of the conclusion of the film, right?
Yep.
When everybody gets to Chinatown, when Gittes says to the detective that was his friend and is now his enemy, Escobar,
yep.
I just need 5 minutes. There is legitimately 5 minutes left of the film.
Yeah.
Not counting the credits after, like 5 minutes of the actual.
Funny, I can appreciate
what makes that so funny, though, totally accidental.
Oh
They
no!
admitted that it was completely accidental.
No, I can't accept that then. No, like if that was intentional, that's amazing.
Yeah, nope. They were like, yeah,
I
we
think
just got to the final edit, and we were like, oh,
it's more
hey, that
amazing
works
that
out.
it's not on purpose. That's awesome.
I've totally lost my train of thought. I had a question for Jack, um, but I forgot it. So
It's gone. It's
it's
gone.
gone.
Well, if you think of it again, you
Yeah,
let
I'm
us
gonna
know.
pin it in.
Can we also talk about the um the fact that so Evelyn gets shot through the eye and it's her deficient eye.
Her
She
what?
has she has something wrong with her eye.
Oh, that
That's the
like
eye
birth
she gets
defect.
shot. Yeah, that's the eye she gets shot through. And this is like a repeated theme throughout the film. We can constantly get this imagery of two identical looking things, but one's defective. We get the two stopwatches at the beginning of the movie, but one of them's crushed. We get when Jake first goes and is following, and he puts the stopwatches on both sides of
Yeah.
the tires. Okay,
Yep.
so we get that imagery. We get obviously Evelyn's eyes. We get the tail light on Evelyn's car. Jake goes and breaks one of them out, so you have one in good condition and one in deficient condition. So we constantly are getting this, and then you ultimately have the deficiency of you have Catherine, who is supposed to look like Evelyn but younger, but then Catherine is deficient in that she's of incest.
Hmm.
So it's this really cool little symbolism that we get throughout the entirety of the film. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
Was that a fun fact you read, or is that actually intentional? Because that doesn't sound intentional to me. Like just thinking about the film, and
So
like
it did not start intentional as they started, like as they realized they had it.
they were going
They
for it.
they
That
ran
makes
with it,
sense.
Dustin,
but
I feel
it
like,
was very
and this is
accidental.
not a knock. I'm just stating what I feel. Like, I feel like you approach movies and maybe all art from like, what did the artist intend to do? Like, was this on purpose? Either if it's like they say a line that's 5 minutes and then there's actually 5 minutes left, or going back to your like Knives Out episode, like every clock was set where it would
With
really
real
be
time.
right
Yep.
real time. And my whole point is going more on what John just said is I feel like art is, I mean, yes, it's cool. I think artists need to know what they want audiences to take away from, but then also I just feel like the audience can come up with their own opinions and theories, and I think that's totally right. So whether John got that from a fun fact or if he just came up with it on his own theory, I think it's both valid. Um, so that's my statement. I feel like you are too analytical on, well, what did the director want, or did the writer mean to do that?
The
When it's like,
intentionality behind the artwork rather than the artwork's intentions, outward intention.
yes,
I could see that.
I see that a little bit.
That would explain why you hate theater.
I think I don't like theater just because it's
It's a conversation for another time.
yeah, it's a whole other conversation. Let's bring it back to this movie. I can see that a little bit. Yeah, like it's really cool when the director, the writer plays this is how they want it to be done and then they play it out and they execute it and they execute it well. And there's a lot of things like I'm not going to just like sit here and say like, "Oh, there's nothing good about this movie." There are good things about this movie. There's really good framing in certain scenes. Like my favorite scene was when the inspector was in the car with Evelyn having that conversation, the way they had their faces lit up with the lighting like perfectly. And that's like all you could see, right? I mean, you could kind of see certain elements of the car, but like I thought that was really well done. So again, it was hard to follow for me. The movie was hard to follow. I mean, like honestly though, Jack, like think about it, like from the beginning to the end, like you didn't see the end coming, I'm sure, the first time you saw it, right? But like you're sitting there watching the movie, and John, this is a question for you too. like, how did you legitimately feel when you were watching the movie? Did you feel engaged 100% of the time? Did it hold your attention? Like, were you just like, I have to know
I'm gonna reserve my answer on that until I
till the
give my
end?
rating,
That's fine.
I'm not
because that's all
saying
very
that
tied into my rating.
an older movie is, the attention span of millennials or people that live in 2021. We're used to watching TikToks for fun, 10 to 60-second videos. And so this is longer. Like, one of the things I love about it is I feel like action movies today, like the action scenes, I hate how choppy, and that's what I would
Quick
say, like the
cuts,
action yeah, the cuts are so, it makes me feel like I'm getting, I got whiplash,
motion sickness.
and I just, like, it's so fast and so choppy that I don't even know what's happening on screen. One of the things I like about this movie is, and all of the older movies, is it's just a still shot or a shot that follows the people fighting, and so you understand what's happening, because yes, it is slower. Going back to my point of, like, maybe your attention wasn't held because it is slower. It's not as uh, chaotic as Uncut Gems. There's not enough things on the screen as Knives Out, but I think that's why I like it, is because it's very dry bones. It's very simplistic in a good way, where you get what you need in the scene, and you get out and you go to the next scene, which in my opinion, it makes sense. uh, the order, the sequences of where you're headed and where Jake goes with the clues he gets in the scenes before that.
Prior to.
Right.
So Jack, I think that leads perfectly to, and certainly Dustin, if you have more questions, I think we can continue the conversation. Um, but I think that perfectly segues into what are you going to score this movie and why? And then Dustin will go to you on that, and then I'll do mine, and then obviously if we have more we want to talk about, we still can. But I think we're at a really good point to just say, like, here's where I'm at.
Yeah. No, I think, Jack, since you're
Oh,
going, I think you should
yeah.
explain.
This isn't a surprise to either of you. I'm going to give this a 9.5, the same score as Uncut Gems. I really like this one.
Wow.
For the reasons I said. I
Wow.
can't.
Keep defending that score, please.
Oh, I know yours are going to be so low, and
No,
I
no,
don't care.
that's fair. No. I want to know where you are with this film.
Just as a writing standpoint, I think I didn't read the screenplay, but
Mm-hmm.
just as a writing standpoint, I think, because this movie, it is, I mean, I'll just say, like, this movie, it swept nominations for the Oscars. It was nominated for Best Picture. It was nominated for all the actors, um, cinematography, editing, and the only one that won was Robert Towne for screenplay. And I do think that it is an amazing story. I think that, yes, you can say that it's slower, or maybe didn't grab your attention at times, or, like, maybe for Dustin, like, why are we here? But I think if you really just look at the story, I always go back to, um, be economic, be, economical with your pages only, and dialogue and action lines. Like, tell us what we need to know, and that's all. And I think when you get down to it, there's not a lot of fluff in this. Maybe you disagree, but I think when we're talking just about the mystery and just about the story within the story, because on the surface, this is a mystery about the water crisis, right? Which is still important, but it's deeper than that. And that's what the tragedy is at the end, is what we talked about with Evelyn and her daughter slash sister, and the relationship with Jake, and how Jake, I just think the biggest tragedy is Jake almost knows this is going to happen again, could have maybe prevented it. We could argue that, but doesn't. And that's, I don't know. I just like the story. But go ahead and tell me why you don't, Dustin.
Hold on. What do you think Dustin's score is going to be?
Probably below a 5.
Oh, okay. Dustin, what do you got for us, man?
Wow, you got to give me a little bit more credit than that, Jack. Jeez. I mean, I don't like the film, but damn.
I just hope it's higher than Hubie Halloween.
Oh man, I don't even remember what I scored that movie. Hopefully it is.
Or Sonic. God, you probably like Sonic more than this.
Okay, so I'm gonna give it a 6.5 out of 10. Yeah, but for me, like I can't argue with the points that you just made about the writing, and it had so many like witty one-liners,
Yeah,
right,
great
in the
lines.
story.
Great lines.
But where I think it needed to be improved, and maybe this was again, I don't know, because I wasn't around in '74, so I don't know the limitations of production and camera angles and everything. But and like sound, it was hard to sometimes catch those witty one-liners because I didn't hear them or they were spoken too fast, and they're like if you weren't paying attention, it went over your head. So for me, like the story was great. I think it could have been more engaging though if you would have mixed up. And like I know you were saying that it was nice to just have like the still picture and then like that's your scene, but just like one extra camera in one of some of those shots would have really helped kind of mix things up and kind of kept you a little bit more on edge. Like, oh, here we are, here we're there, whatever. I don't know. Writing was great. The production was okay. Editing was okay. The ending was okay. I think really for me it was the execution of everything. Like you had a great story, but you, in my opinion, didn't execute it very well.
Just the ending or the whole story?
The whole thing. Like I think there was opportunities. Like if you were to remake this film today, I think it would be vastly better. Not just because of like technology, but I think you could get somebody in there who could do more with like camera angles and then like have somebody edit it in post. I think you could have a better film today. Strictly with keeping the same story. I'm not even saying change the ending. Like keep it exactly the same, just edit it differently and film it differently.
Interesting. So, Dustin, you would almost say you feel like this was a movie made before its time.
Maybe, yeah. Like I said, I don't know. I don't know the limitations that they were facing at that time. But hell,
Sure.
maybe it was the director. I don't know.
For sure. All right, Jack, I gotta ask before I go on mine. Where do you think I'm gonna land at?
Somewhere in between. I mean, now I don't know, like a 7.
Yeah, 7.5
You
is
think?
what I would say.
Wow. All right. Well, so
Ooh,
I'm gonna come in with the disappointment here. I'm giving this film a nice solid 5. A really nice solid 5.
damn.
And here's why. I enjoyed it, but I disagree. I think there are better stories to tell. I think
Mm,
there are better ways to tell the story. I think there are better examples of that from this era of Hollywood. And I am someone who am passionate about the golden era of Hollywood. I love it. But this is so much of it, it almost becomes a caricature of itself and what it's trying to accomplish, in my opinion. I think the acting is there as much as it could be, but I think there were some very real limitations. We know Polanski, uh, who, as I've said, I enjoy some of his other works, but we know he was a pretty difficult director to work with, and I think that that shows throughout the film. There are moments when you can see that it's like, yeah, I just want to get this scene done with and move on. Like, and that almost contributes to that choppiness that I think Dustin's feeling between those transitions. I don't know that I agree that you could make this film better if you made it today, only in that I don't think today a director would be willing to do it under the stipulations to make it successful today. That basically those stipulations that you just lined out. Like I don't think they would stick to the same script. I don't think they would stick to the
mhm.
same ending. Like they would try to punch it up and do that, that 21st century jazzness to it. And it's like, no, no, leave it alone. The only people, honestly, I would watch it if it was done by the Coen brothers. I think they could make this a very workable story. But there are movies that are black and white from the 30s that I would probably say I would watch before I watch this movie again. Um, because I think the execution is just there. To me, this felt like watching a play. And that's not to say it's bad. It's not, but I never felt fully engrossed in the experience. I very much felt like, yes, I am watching a play. And I was very aware of that fact. Now, some of that I will say could have been contributed to a couple of factors. Number one, I was watching it on a 75-inch 4K TV. So that upscaling probably didn't do any favors to the editing, and made some of that a little more apparent.
Did you watch it in HD?
I watched it in whatever HBO Max provided it as,
Hmm.
because that's the service I utilized it for. Going back, Dustin, to your question of if the film kept my attention, absolutely not. I actually, part of the reason it took me a little longer to watch this than you guys is I actually fell asleep twice and had to rewind it to catch stuff. Um, so yeah, no, the film definitely did not keep my attention through the whole thing. There were some serious lulls, and again, I can understand the artistic decision making. I can recognize that this movie was just not made for me. Um,
But
I think it was made for a specific audience that is like our grandparents. I think our grandparents would and probably do enjoy this film. I think there's a lot of great stuff to be taken from this film and learned from it, in particular, given the era of Hollywood that it was. And then when you also think about the contextualization around it, again, not dismissing anything he did to be a terrible human being, but Polanski literally made this film coming right off the brutal murder of his wife and child. Comes back to the town where it happened and then has to film something about a brutal murder taking place in that town.
a couple murders
Um,
actually in this
a
film.
couple of them, and I think that there's a lot of good to be said about that kind of journey. I think it reflects heavily in the movie. Like I said, I think a lot of his personal life reflects. And maybe this is me connecting dots where there is no correlation. But it's kind of interesting knowing the things we know about Polanski, that you have this kind of gross incestuous relationship at a very young age with a young woman, that you have um, some pretty violent things, at least in terms of what could be put to film at that time, occurring. You have this kind of built into Los Angeles hierarchy of citizenship that Polanski would have felt as a Jew who had come to America at the time that he did and experienced the things that he did in Hollywood. Um, and so, I think a lot of that's reflected. I think there's a lot to be taken from it. But at the end of the day, yeah, this was not. I don't think this is the movie I would recommend, which I know flies in the face of a lot of Hollywood at the moment, because this film is actually regarded as one of the greatest works, something excellent for screenwriters to go study. It was rated like in the top 10
What did you
greatest
just say?
movies.
It
It's legitimately as something for screenwriters to go like learn from.
right. The
It's regarded
script.
that way. So yeah, no, absolutely.
See, like I wouldn't like I'm as you're talking about it, like I'm thinking about like why you felt that way. And I think honestly, I'm thinking about the camera angles and everything. And it was a lot of rinse and repeat.
Yep.
Like when he was in the car, it was always like the same over the shoulder shot. When he was talking
It
to people, it
honestly
was always
felt
the same
like
framing.
a really early like PS2 era video game, right? Like where you could
Well,
tell they're just reusing the same animations over and over.
right. Or theater. Like you keep going back to that reference of
Yeah,
theater and like you're always like
that staging.
you're in your seat. You're always getting the same shot.
Yeah. Yep. Every time. Jack, what are your thoughts, man? Because I feel like I just came in out of nowhere on that front.
All
A
I
little
know
bit.
is from now on, when I'm a guest, uh, we're gonna be watching the classics.
I love it. No, I love it. I think, and like I said, there's a lot of classics I love and adore. This one just wasn't for me.
No,
So,
that's valid. And what you're saying, it makes sense. I think going back to my love and passion of theater and my background in theater, it does make sense. Maybe I do like this a little longer or a little more. How we stay on the characters and the angles a little longer than current.
Right. I honestly think I would have liked this story better if it was just theater.
Yeah, maybe.
Like if it was just a filmed play that we witnessed, I feel like I would have liked it better. So, well, that's everything I have to say, unless anyone has any questions.
I don't have questions. I have a couple more things.
Okay.
Just little things. When the film crew, and I learned this from the book, The Big Goodbye, when the film crew went to the location that Ida Sessions, Jake gets the call that you should check on Ida Sessions, and when he goes to her apartment, sorry, let me find my notes. When the film crew went to the location, the door was actually locked, and they couldn't get in. And so they were like figuring out like, well, what are we gonna do? And as you guys know, when you're on set, every minute counts. And so Polanski, before literally anyone could say anything, broke the door open, just went through the window, and
That's funny.
that's why it kind of like makes sense. Like if she got killed, if someone went in and
Would
killed
bust
her.
the door open.
Right.
Yeah.
But I thought that was kind of funny. I also want to say that, like, because we didn't talk about this, the scene where Jake gets his nose cut. I thought that was so well done for that time.
Yeah.
It looked really good, and I don't know. I just goes back to the theater. Like you're literally just on that shot alone for the long.
Oh no, did we just lose Jack?
I think we just lost Jack.
Oh my gosh.
Well, maybe he'll reconnect.
Yeah, that was actually.
I was going to talk about that scene real quick.
I wanted to bring up a note about that too, because I remember my thought. Go ahead, though, Jack. Finish your thing.
Jack, are you back?
Yeah, I think he's back.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
we can now. All right. So you were saying we're fixated on that scene.
Oh yeah, it did tell me my internet connection is bad. Well, I don't know if you can hear me now, but okay.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, I liked that scene. That's Roman Polanski played the guy with the knife because Jack Nicholson was so scared. He's like, you can't fuck up my face. You can't fuck with this. This is my career. He was so scared that he was actually gonna like cut him. And so Polanski's like, I'll do it. And he actually ended up doing I think 10 or 15 takes of it, even though people on the crew were like, oh yeah, you could have probably used the first one. But I think Polanski was just fucking with them.
Probably.
That's terrifying.
And then some other notes I have. I talked about how I loved the last scene. I think it's funny. No one mentioned this. In the scene in the car where Evelyn goes to pick Jake up at the Orange Grove, he's trying to light his cigarette and it just won't light. So he just gives up. I thought that was kind of funny.
So I didn't even think about that.
I thought that was I thought that scene was funny because it was the only transition scene that we saw from one thing to the next. Continue.
Going back to the cut on the nose, I think it's just incredible that yes, this is Jack Nicholson's first leading role, and for half the movie he's wearing a bandage on his nose. I think that was funny, and I think it's just very unique. And that image, even the cover of this book, I mean, I think this image alone
has that on it. Yeah.
People watching this on YouTube, yeah.
I think one of my favorite things about that scene too is that, and admittedly this is one that I read in my research for the movie. So the prop that they used, the makeup and all of that, the effects, was super complicated. And I guess Polanski and Nicholson got tired of explaining how they did it in interviews years down the road. So it kind of just became for a little while a prevailing accepted rumor that they actually cut Nicholson's nose because he just got tired of explaining it. He was like, "Oh no, that was real." And then he would like let people look at his nose and like, "Man, I can't even see the scar." And so I love that about that scene.
That's funny.
That reminds me though, real quick, I wanted to say this too, is like, as lukewarm as I was on this movie, I realized it is the origination point of a lot of pop culture that you see throughout Hollywood over the next several decades. Like the scene with the knife has been parodied and mimicked so many times in the nose. The "Forget It, Jake, it's Chinatown" is like a parodied line in a lot. Like there's so many things that became staples of Hollywood pop culture that originated in this film, and I thought that was just really cool to see.
I was going to ask you a question for both of you. Did you want more action in this movie, or are you fine with that?
I wanted 30 minutes less of this movie.
I
Okay.
wanted 30 minutes in Chinatown.
I think an hour and a half movie makes this a lot easier to digest.
I agree. Actually, I remember too that was my big gripe coming into this movie. I was like, okay, so we're going to see something in Chinatown, and then we never saw anything. And I actually disagree. I don't think it was actually portrayed well enough that Chinatown was really just a mindset.
I think
they should have changed the name. I honestly, like, if I was in charge, I would have changed the name.
I mean, I could have. I don't think I would have changed the name. I could agree with you. I think maybe Polanski relied too much on like common knowledge in that era. Like in the
Mhm.
70s, like it was kind of known in the 70s that yeah, Chinatown is even in the 70s still like Chinatown was this place of LA that was just kind of, a lawless land because people didn't care. Um, and so maybe Polanski relied a little too much on that knowledge being out there. So I would agree that they could have stepped it up a little more.
But like from a person going in blind, like completely blind, you don't know anything about this movie. You just know the title Chinatown. You're like, all right, what's gonna happen? Are the bad guys in Chinatown? Are the people like is the mob in charge of like the water not being?
I feel like we should have watched the movie Big Trouble in Little Chinatown for you, Dustin. You
Honestly,
would have enjoyed that
I shit you not. I thought that's what we were gonna watch at first, and then I'm like, no, I don't think that's what it's called. I'm like, yeah, no, that's Big Trouble in Little China. This is something different. And then I watched the trailer. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. But I'm like, we'll still probably see something in Chinatown.
Oh my gosh! Speaking of trailers, everyone knows I don't like trailers, but trailers for old movies just gave away everything. Like
we knock it on trailers today, but trailers for old movies would literally be like, here's the beginning scene of the movie, a couple scenes from the middle, and then the final shot.
The last scene, yeah.
Oh, I didn't actually watch the full trailer. It would have been interesting to watch the full trailer.
Yeah, because then you would have really felt like you didn't need to watch this movie.
Well, I'd be curious because I actually thought the trailer was pretty well done. The one that I watched, I think it actually had narration of what was happening too. It was like
it did. A lot of trailers from that era.
Same guy from like that era. I know.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But
anyway, I'll just go back to the fact that I read the book before I saw the movie. Maybe that is helping me with my score.
Some supplemental help there.
But
I think having that background knowledge.
But I do like the more ambiguous title and theme of. I would say that I don't need it to be all in Chinatown. I like that you have to think a little harder on things, but
I can see that. All right, well that's a good way to go out. I think.
Abstract piece of art.
Next time, are we talking about Mulan? Are we going to do Mulan next time?
I have no idea what we're doing next time.
We'll figure that out. But definitely tune in next time and find out what we go to next. I think my favorite thing about us doing this movie was it's something different. So let's see what next time brings with us. So with that, guys, I guess we're signing off. I've been John. Dustin and
Yep.
Jack,
Thanks.
J.R. Davidson, joining us.
Jumping on.
Remember the name, folks. One of these days, Jack J.R. Davidson's going to be up in the big lights out there in LA. And you'll know that you got to hear him here first. So, with
You're gonna
that,
jinx
buddy,
me.
we are done.
Bye.
Bye.